Want to talk sports?
Now it's time for Monty in the Morning.
Hey, yo, man. It is Thursday, July the 1st, 2021. And the Phoenix Suns are going to the NBA Finals, which apparently pisses off the Salt Lake Tribune. We'll talk about that coming up. There is a significant amount of disrespect on the Phoenix Suns from the media. And I'm not really sure why that is. Why there is disrespect for Devin Booker. Why there is, well, if this had happened and that had happened, my mom would have balls. But she doesn't, so she's not.
Yeah.
I don't understand it. We'll talk about all that coming up. We've got to get into LeBron and Dame. We've got to get into Trevor Bauer and these heinous accusations that this San Diego woman is making against him. We'll talk about that later in the show. They are gnarly. They are nasty. And yet baseball is not taking action, at least not yet, against Trevor Bauer and the LA Dodgers. So we'll be watching that very closely. I would be shocked if Trevor Bauer makes his next start on the 4th of July, which is Sunday. That's something very much to watch, so we'll get into that. But make sure you hit subscribe right now on this here program. And if you're listening on audio podcast, bless you, friends. You can find us anywhere you get a podcast. Just search The Monty Show. M-O-N-T-Y, The Monty Show. That includes iTunes. That includes, Spotify, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, you name it.
Everywhere.
Just search The Monty Show, M-O-N-T-Y, The Monty Show. And then make your way over to themontyshow.com and hit subscribe on our YouTube channel because we are giving away this very beautiful Xbox Series S that has 120 FPS units of power.
Frames per second. I'm a badass.
Amazing. That'll allow you to kill zombies at a much faster pace, I'm sure. But go ahead, hit subscribe, take a photo that you're subscribed, tagged us on both Twitter and Instagram, The Monty Show, M-O-N-T-Y, The Monty Show. He, Jake, is SLC Supercars. Let's talk NBA Finals right now because the Phoenix Suns are champions of the Western Conference. And while I think they made a huge mistake touching the conference championship trophy, oh, wait, this isn't hockey. I still wouldn't touch it. The Phoenix Suns have earned their way into the NBA Finals, and it is remarkable to me how they did that. But I think the bigger story is the disrespect of Devin Booker, Chris Paul, and this Suns team and their accomplishments. And this morning, I'm shocked to wake up and find a tweet from Eric Walden of the Salt Lake Tribune, who is absolutely torching the Phoenix Suns. And his tweet this morning said the Suns have only lost 4 games in the first 3 rounds of the NBA playoffs. True, but maybe, just maybe, if Anthony Davis, Jamal Murray, and Kawhi Leonard change that. Well, it's not the Suns' fault those guys got hurt. And you cannot slap them in the face and discredit them as not just Walden from the Trib did. I mean, this is a conversation that was going on all night last night, and frankly has been going on for about a week since they swept the Nuggets. It's shocking to me that you're essentially blaming the Suns for other people's injuries and saying, well, if these guys had been healthy, the Suns wouldn't be here. But hey, congratulations for not, earning your way, just having it handed to you. Mm-hmm. And I think it's incredibly disrespectful. And I think what it does is it completely discounts all of the hard work. Like Devin Booker is maybe the perfect example of this. This is a guy that's had soft tissue injuries throughout his entire career. Devin Booker put in the work in the offseason to stay healthy. Chris Paul, for the first time, granted, he's missed games. He had the shoulder injury. Again, water's wet and Chris Paul's hurt in the playoffs, and he was. He missed the first 2 games of this Clippers series because of COVID. He had a positive test, and he wasn't allowed to play. Guess what? The Suns still won games without him. And I think that speaks to the character of Monty Williams as a head coach and Devin Booker and the rest of the Suns roster as a team because they persevered through their own injuries. And I just think, Jake, discrediting them in any way is really, really a slap in the face to the Suns.
Yeah, and I think, I think that the media specifically the media, has a responsibility not to be bitter about the fact that their own team went out of the postseason due to injuries, and that's really, in Salt Lake specifically, that's what, in my opinion, that's what I think is going on here with this Phoenix Suns team. You've got, media folks saying, hey, they shouldn't be here. They had an easy path. I'm tweeting with people last night saying that they had some kind of easy path. I'd like to remind people that, you had to go through Los Angeles with LeBron. You then had to go through the Nuggets with Jokic, who I don't know if anybody's heard of him. He's just the MVP this year. And then you had to go through the Clippers with Paul George. So I don't think that they had an easy path. And I think the what this is really showing you is the bitterness of the way the Jazz went out. Because if you think about it, the Jazz lose to this same Clippers team without Kawhi Leonard. Right? Let's not forget that that Kawhi Leonard was not available. I think it was the last 2 games of the series that the Jazz played against the Clippers. And now the Suns have beaten that same team. And so I just think it goes to show that there is emotions in this sport. They run high. And I think you got to stay level-headed. And I think, for the Suns, this is a great moment. If you're a Suns fan, if you're a longtime Suns fan who was around when Nash was playing, and you've been watching this team suffer for decades at this point, this is a great moment for you, and I'm incredibly happy for you. I think that Devin Booker, again, we'll get to this, but Devin Booker has worked his ass off to get here. I think Chris Paul has worked really hard, and I think, this is a great time for DeAndre Ayton as well. So to be sitting here on Twitter discrediting what the Suns have done because other teams had injuries is just ridiculous to me. The NBA is a sport that largely is determined by which team can stay the healthiest. So what we should be doing is we should be saying, hey, let's give the Suns credit for staying healthy. Let's give the Suns credit for persevering when Chris Paul was out, instead of saying, oh, well, they somehow had an easy path, or somehow, they don't deserve to be here. That to me can't happen.
That's right.
In sports. That just can't happen.
And, the interesting thing is this has turned into a complete farce on Twitter now, but look, and I'll talk specifically about Eric Walden in the Salt Lake Tribune. I don't read the Tribune very often. Frankly, I enjoy The Athletic because of Tony Jones. I've known Tony a lot of years. I think Tony is the best NBA guy in this market. I know you're not a huge fan, but I think Ben Anderson does a very nice job with the NBA at KSL. I just think that the Tribune is fandom. I think the Tribune cheers for the Jazz, and they tend to get emotional and protective of their hometown Utah Jazz team, and that's not unbiased journalism. And I think what Eric Walden is a guy that I actually read on a regular basis. I respect Eric Walden's work, but what he did this morning with the Suns, and now trying to say that he was, that he was talking about another tweet in a different conversation. Well, nobody would know that when you say that, had these guys been healthy, maybe the Suns wouldn't be here. That's a complete slap in the face, and it's disrespectful to the Suns. Mm-hmm. And to me, I think the bigger issue is that the Suns outworked people. The Suns were more prepared to grind out a 72-game season, and they've won 12 games that were not easy wins. It's not like they had a walk in the park in Denver. They've grinded out games. They've worked hard. Cam Johnson didn't even play last night, who's a critical three-point threat for them. It's not like the Suns have been 100% healthy. They've just found ways to win without the guys that are injured. When the Lakers and the Jazz and the Nuggets and all these other teams, the Clippers, what about the Clippers? They found a way to beat the Jazz without Kawhi Leonard. I mean, you can make excuses or you can win games. Mm-hmm. The Suns just chose to win games. And teams like the Jazz and the Clippers and the Lakers were not able to overcome their injuries. And I get that. They had foundational players that were injured. And that's really unfortunate. And I think we've even said on this show that if the Lakers were at 100%, they're the best team in the NBA. Yeah. But your best ability is your availability. And the Suns, Devin Booker's been available for every game. Even though he has a broken nose, he's been available for every game. And I look at guys like Trae Young, and it's really unfortunate that this series with Atlanta and Milwaukee has been savaged by injuries. Are we going to discredit Atlanta if they beat Milwaukee? But if not, or
Well, Giannis didn't play, so that's why Atlanta won.
I won't be doing that. Atlanta, if they win this series, Milwaukee, if they win this series, they were the better team. Regardless of who was what and where and when, whoever wins the 4 games first is the better team. And they will go on to play for an NBA championship.
Yes.
This is the discrediting the Lakers because they won a championship in the bubble, which is arguably the most difficult championship that anybody's ever won. I'm not going to discredit teams that win games and achieve at a very high level. Chris Paul and Devin Booker played pretty freaking fabulous basketball last night. And they did it against a team that has persevered and worked their asses off and ran out of gas, frankly, in the LA Clippers.
Yeah.
And I don't think that that's a knock against the Suns. I actually think that it's a credit to the Suns, and we should be complimenting them for persevering and staying healthy and working hard. And Monty Williams making incredible adjustments from Game 5 to Game 6. But instead, we're talking about if Jamal Murray had been healthy or if AD and LeBron had been healthy. I'm not willing to disrespect the Suns like that. They've come too far and they've worked too hard. So it's incredibly frustrating.
We shouldn't be talking about guys who aren't on the floor. Like, we shouldn't. I just think that, I think that what needs to be said here is that Jazz fans in particular, Jazz media in particular, is probably a bit bitter about the fact that the Suns were able to handle this Clippers team and they were not. And I think that the way, again, I know I keep referencing this lately on the show, but like the way that you went out against the Clippers was painful. It was frustrating. It was, not ideal. It wasn't like, you had a game that went down to a game winner and Paul George just happened to hit some ridiculous shot or something, and that's what sent you home. I mean, Rudy Gobert, air quotes, got exposed in that game, which upset a lot of people. And, you got outclassed. And I think that, if you're a Jazz fan, you're sitting here saying, man, like, how is this Suns team doing it? They don't have anybody. Who the hell is Cam Johnson? Who's Cam Payne? Like, who are these guys? This is so ridiculous. And what you got to understand is that's just not, you're living on emotion at that point. And that's why I think we see the Eric Waldens of the world tweeting that stuff because they want to sit here and say, hey, the Suns are not as deep, or they're not this or they're not that, and they wouldn't be here if he had played. And it just gets tiring, man. Why can't we just say, hey, the Phoenix Suns are a great story. Devin Booker has been on, by most people's standards, has been on the cusp of superstardom for like 3 seasons now. In my opinion, he is a superstar now, regardless of what the stats say. He definitely has arrived, and I just think that they deserve a lot of credit. Why can't we do that? I mean, what we tend to do is we tend to say, hey, well, this guy won, but screw him. There's some kind of issue with him, like he played a weak opponent, or he got a call this way or that way, or like we always do that in sports instead of just saying, hey, Devin Booker played a hell of a game. Chris Paul threw up 40 in an elimination game on the road. Hell of a game, bro. Hell of a game. You've been in the league for a long time. You've been through a lot of different things. More power to you. We'll see you next season if we're the Utah Jazz or any of these other teams. That's what I can't live with. You're not accountable enough or respectful enough just to say, hey, they had a better season than us. We'll come back next year.
Yeah, and it is, what's shocking to me is, holy cow, the Phoenix Suns are a good story. You look at what this team has been through with Robert Sarver as their owner. You look at the last decade of just tribulation, terrible draft picks, struggling to have any kind of hold in the community. You look at the struggle to have their arena rebuilt and everything that they went through in that process. You begin to understand that they have climbed mountains to get to where they are. And you begin to understand that James Jones remade the front office, did a great job hiring the right coach, Monty Williams, who then was an integral part of getting Chris Paul to Phoenix. Those two with their relationship in New Orleans, their ability to communicate and work together, Chris Paul's instant credibility in the locker room and on the floor where he is able to chop down DeAndre Ayton's weaknesses and help him rebuild a bigger, better, badder Andre Ayton. The complementary skill sets between Chris Paul and Devin Booker, and the fact that they haven't even been in the playoffs for 10 years. They have one of the worst owners in the NBA.
Man.
And they've overcome it all. And yet here we are talking about not that Chris Paul's a great story, not that Monty Williams is the resurrection of Monty Williams both personally and professionally. That Devin Booker dedicated his offseason to his body last year. Like, people just want to focus on the negative. And I think at some point, we need to get over that. We need to stop doing that.
Yeah.
Because I look at the Phoenix Suns, and I think that they are the best team left in the NBA playoffs. To me, I think they match up. Giannis is clearly not going to be the Giannis of 100% health. And that's unfortunate because that plays right into this narrative. Oh, the luck it's not luck that the Suns are in the NBA Finals. They earned it. And if they win an NBA championship, no matter who they play, whether that is the Hawks, the Bucks, or your mom, they've earned it. And they're going to hang that banner, and they're going to polish that ring, and it's going to be amazing at Suns Arena come November. But we have a long way to go before that happens. And to me, right now is the time to celebrate an unbelievable achievement in winning the Western Conference Championship by the Phoenix Suns. And I think it's an incredible disrespect to not only the Suns but the NBA to do the things that we're seeing the media doing on Twitter. And now I will say, what an incredible job of coaching by Monty Williams last night.
Yeah.
I think the adjustments we talked about on the show yesterday morning, he made every one of them. I mean, playing Cameron Payne and Chris Paul, which we talked about specifically, playing them together was fantastic. You saw the Clippers come out in zone, and the Suns were ready for that. And immediately you had guys cutting from the wings into the paint. Devin Booker, obviously he missed an easy bunny in the paint there early in the game.
Yep.
But what it showed you is the Suns were prepared for that zone, and we saw very little zone out of the Clippers the rest of the night. And that allowed Chris Paul to play free, to play in space, to get to that mid-range, to be able to drive and drop a three-pointer to Dario Saric. I think it was 7 of 8 from 3 last night. The Suns were ready for the zone and how the Clippers would react out of that zone. And they took advantage of that. And, much to his credit, I think Monty Williams put his role players on the road in a closeout game, which is very difficult to get contributions from your role players in that specific scenario. He put his role players in a situation to not only compete, but to succeed. Playing Cameron Payne with Chris Paul takes a lot of pressure off of Payne. To Payne's credit, he had 2 shots blocked in the paint, just kept on going. I look at Dario Saric. Chris Paul put Dario Saric in a perfect situation to knock down that 3 from the top of the key. The Suns executed last night. And I think the other thing that you saw was the mental game finally went in favor of the Suns. Patrick Beverley had a real impact on this series. His defense is outstanding. I think we all know that about Pat Bev. But the fact that he was able to shoot the 3-ball really well in this series, the fact that he was able to break the paint and get layups really was a tide turner, and it gave the Clippers a lot of momentum. And then it all fell apart. The talking, the chirping. I think it changed at the leg sweep the other night.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Paul started winning. From the moment that Pat Bev swept those legs out, Chris Paul started winning. And I think when you see that mental game throughout the ball game last night, certainly Patrick Beverley had moments, but the shove of Chris Paul was the final indication that Chris Paul had gotten over on Patrick Beverley. And I will again say the same thing that we said when the playoffs started.
Yeah.
You can't have Patrick Beverley on your team and hope to win a championship.
Mm-hmm.
DeMarcus Cousins, was the elbow really an elbow? Yeah, it was thrown with intent. Did Chris Paul act? Absolutely, he flopped. No doubt about it. But DeMarcus Cousins gave him the opportunity to do that. And again, I think I agree with Jeff Van Gundy. I would have dished out double technicals in that situation.
Yeah.
But I think that DeMarcus Cousins put the Clippers in a bad situation there. Now, if memory serves, Chris Paul missed the free throw on the technical, but it almost didn't matter.
Yeah.
Because at that point, you were getting over.
Yep.
And the part that I also thought was pretty remarkable about the way the Suns adjusted last night, they never got comfortable with the lead. You know what I mean? Like, they never took their foot off the gas. I think it would be easy to be up 15 points with whatever that was, 3 minutes to go, when Jay Crowder, who also shot the lights out last night.
He did.
When Jay Crowder walked over to Chris Paul and said, hey, can you taste it? And Chris Paul's like, no, we're not done yet. Like, that mentality, that to me is why the Suns are in the NBA Finals. Not because everybody else was hurt, but because they had their mentality right at the right times. And Monty Williams put his guys in a position, Jake, to perform at their highest, best level.
Yeah.
I think that's why the Suns are in the NBA Finals.
Yeah, and you noticed last night that the Suns were never in that position where they were losing their composure. And, specifically, we saw, I think it was game 3, maybe game 4, one of those two games where, Devin Booker had picked up all those silly fouls. He had kind of got mixed up in the BS, if you will, with Bev and
Yes.
with Paul George and
Wearing the face mask.
yeah, we never saw that last night, and I think that all that credit goes to Monty Williams because just like you were saying, when you're prepared to play against the zone, when you're prepared for what the Clippers are going to throw at you, you're not surprised. So you're able to say, "Hey,
Right.
we're ready for this. We're this is not surprising to us. We're good to go here." And that allowed them to really take this next step forward. And yeah, I do agree. Chris Paul not never giving in and even up 15 when the game was not in question anymore, still saying, hey, we need to stay locked in until it's over, until the clock expires, and then we can celebrate. I think you got to give him a lot of credit for that. I think too often in NBA games, you see guys get comfortable, and then it's like literally,
Yes.
turnover here, turnover there, and all of a sudden the Clippers are storming back and have all the momentum, and you're on the road. And now here comes the narrative about Chris Paul can't win a playoff series. So yeah, I think they deserve all the credit in the world.
Yeah, let's get some of the comments in here this morning, and we always appreciate you guys being here. Thank you so much for supporting the show. Thank you for watching every day, listening on podcast, liking, subscribing. We really do appreciate you. Driftwood says first in. Congratulations. Good morning to you. Eric C. says morning, fellas.
Morning.
Hi, Eric.
Hello.
Jackson says Xbox is moine. Okay. Cody Strickland says morning, fellas. What TV shows you guys into? The NBA Finals.
Notice. All due respect, Cody. We're not at. Hey, what TV shows are you guys into season yet? Mainly because the basketball season isn't over yet.
Well, it is in Utah. Cody Strickland and Cody also says, "Can I get some Growcock?" I miss our guy.
Yeah, I don't know
I miss our
man.
guy. I really miss our guy. By the way, TV shows real quick. Deadliest Catch, Chicago PD. I have pretty much every episode in the DVR. I think Mrs. Monty, who is the true hero in this home for dealing with me. I think Mrs. Monty is probably tired of watching Chicago PD reruns. But you know what? I actually think the SVU, Law and Order series, the new one with Elliot Stabler being back, which I can't remember the name of it. I can't remember it, but it is Organized Crime. I think that's been really good. But, my wife's got me into some genealogy shows, Finding Your Roots specifically. It just depends on the day and the time. What we haven't done in a while is binge watch anything like a new series on Netflix or Hulu or.
There hasn't really been that Firestorm series that has come out and must watch.
No. Driftwood says Chris Paul was awesome last night. That's something that never has come out of my mouth before. Yeah, absolutely. James Knight said, love Pat Bev not taking Chris Paul's crap. Patrick Beverley probably shoved his way out of the league last night.
Yeah, dude got had,
Are you
man.
serious?
Come on, James.
Pat Beverley got. Sleepy is tired. Says Pat Bev is a punk. Dude was talking all series and couldn't handle taking the L. Yeah, and that's the thing that's amazing.
And they said that on the broadcast last night. I mean, they said it without saying it. So I think it was Mark Jackson who had said, it's all fun and games when you've got the lead and everything if you're Pat Bev, but it's funny what happens when the tides are turned. And I believe the terminology he used was something to the effect of, it's funny what happens when the rabbit has the chip or something like that.
No, it's funny what happens when the rabbit's got the gun. is the saying.
Yeah.
And it's true. I mean, I think Patrick Beverley really had earned himself a bunch of money. I think he's a guy that a lot of people maligned because he plays on a very thin line. Patrick Beverley plays with a lot of emotion, a lot of intensity. His defense is very close to, foul and flagrant foul on a lot of bases. I mean, that swing he took on DeAndre Ayton's head last night, I was really surprised they didn't call that a flagrant foul. But that's who Patrick Beverley is. And it's all good until he runs up behind Chris Paul and shoves him in the back.
Mm-hmm.
And it's I just don't think you can have that guy in your team if you want to win a championship. And it's really unfortunate because they talked about it on the broadcast last night. The road to Patrick Beverley getting to this point has not been easy. And I think his animosity towards Chris Paul, it's well documented that Chris Paul and James Harden wanted to play together and they, like all of that in Houston. Well, that cost Patrick Beverley a job, and I think he holds Chris Paul accountable for that, rightly or wrongly. And last night, I think that just overflowed in it, and it really, I think, damaged Pat Bev's ability to have a job in this league. Now, I could be wrong, and somebody will probably give him a contract, and maybe it's the Clippers.
Yeah.
He's the longest tenured Clipper. I don't know. But it was really disappointing to see Patrick Beverley lose his himself, if you will.
Yep.
Last night. Emmanuel Quaya says, good morning. Are the Jazz taking notes on how the Suns are playing? They need a player like Chris Paul to win a championship. No, I don't disagree with that. The issue is you have that in Mike Conley. The problem is Mike Conley didn't play because he was hurt. And that's who Mike Conley's always been. And you paid that guy $30+ million, $34 million or whatever it was, to be hurt. And you knew that when you traded for him. You gave up significant assets to get him. And it's just really disappointing that, hey, again, he was hurt. And he was hurt in critical stretches of the season. He was hurt in the playoffs. And that's why I say, like, if I'm the Utah Jazz and I am rebuilding this roster, I'm letting Mike Conley walk away.
Well, and I think that's why, the Mike Conley situation, what happened to Rudy Gobert, the fact that Don was playing on one leg, I think that's why there's so much bitterness and frustration in the Jazz fan base and in the media, because at the end of the day, you're watching this Suns team who is largely built on guys they drafted. I think the only two guys that they've really brought in who play, I guess it's three who they brought in. They've obviously brought in Campaign. You bring in Jay Crowder, and then obviously Chris Paul was like the huge name. So those three guys are really the glue guys that kind of bring your draft picks that you've been developing. They bring all that together. So you kind of take that model and you apply it to the Jazz, and you're sitting here saying, who are our draft picks again? Who are the guys that we're building the team around?
Well, and I think the development of DeAndre Ayton, if the guy ever learns to consistently catch and hold the ball, you see the ball get knocked out of his hands a lot, and he doesn't catch the ball very well. That's the weakness in his offensive game, and certainly his defense has to improve, but he grew leaps and bounds in this postseason. So
made himself a lot of money.
Yeah, I give that credit to Chris Paul. I think if you're the Utah Jazz, the thing about the Jazz is that in my opinion, when you try to shoot 53s a game, I just don't see that you're going to win. I mean, we had this discussion on Twitter last night. I'm telling you, the mid-range game wins you championships. It is, in my opinion, the reason that the Clippers are where they were. They relied very heavily on the three, of course, but you look at Paul George, before Kawhi Leonard got hurt, Paul George was an elite mid-range player. Kawhi was an elite mid-range player.
Yeah.
I think you look at the Phoenix Suns, their two best players are elite in the mid-range in Book and CP3. It's one of the best attributes that Donovan Mitchell has. The problem is when you rely so heavily on that three ball, you tend to lose the mid-range game. And so guys like, pick your poison on this roster. Joe Ingles, Bojan Bogdanovic. I would love to see Jordan Clarkson play more in the mid-range, and I think we saw that as the season went on. He clearly wants to shoot a three every time he gets the ball.
Yeah.
And the problem with that is when you play more mid-range, it lessens Rudy Gobert's impact offensively.
Mm-hmm.
So I just think that if you're going to win a championship and you're going to consistently win games in this league, At least in the postseason, you got to have a mid-range game.
Well, and I think if you take an NBA floor, there's in the league, right? The NBA floor is kind of broken down into 3 sections, right? You've got the outside the 3-point section, tier 1, mid-range is tier 2, under the basket is tier 3. You've got to be able to be dynamic enough to score at all 3 levels.
Right.
And the Jazz as a roster are not. You're either scoring under the basket or from 3. And most times it's from 3. And that's what I think you see. This is not unique to the Suns. Again, as you were just saying, the Clippers play the mid-range all the time. You've got Morris, who thrives on the block. You've got Kawhi, PG, Reggie Jackson has a nice little mid-range game, although he's more than capable of hitting a bunch of threes. Even Terrence Mann. I know he's known for hitting all those threes against Rudy, but you see what he's able to do when he gets into the paint. So I just think that the Jazz have got to find a way to get more balance, because the more balance you can get, the more adjustments that Quinn can make. And if you give Quinn Snyder more ways to win a ball game, he's going to win more ball games. And that's what I think we're seeing with the Suns. That's why they're advancing. They have more ways to beat you on a reliable basis.
Yeah, I think it's one of those interesting roster build construction things. Mm-hmm. When you sign free agents, I think it's certainly something that you have to look at, and you have to build your roster with it. So I think the Jazz are absolutely taking lessons. James says every team the Suns played in the postseason had players injured or had players hurt as a matter of fact, but that's not to say the Suns didn't deserve what they got. The Suns can only beat the teams that are on the floor in front of them. That's all they can do. And to fault them for other guys not being healthy, I think is ridiculous. Yeah, it is. LVL 307 says Walden sour graping. Yeah, I mean, it could be.
I just think that it is, again, with Walden or the media, I just expect better. When you cover this game for a living, you don't cover basketball, baseball, football, volleyball. You cover the NBA. I expect better. That's the difference with the media versus, with all due respect, versus a fan. Media members are paid not to be a fan. They're paid to watch the game and understand what's actually going on, which is part of the reason why we've been pretty much right on everything with the Jazz, because we watch the game, we understand what's happening. And that's why when I see a guy, and it's not unique to Walden, Walden just happened to be today's flavor, right? We see this all the time. When I see somebody of his stature in the media running out, hey, well, the Suns shouldn't be here because of injuries, I'm just like, dude, come on, man. You're a professional writer. Be better. That's the feeling I get. Whether we're talking injuries or you want to have the gimmick conversation with the Jazz, you just be better. That's all I'm asking. Just be better.
Yeah, and I again will say I think Eric Walden's very good at what he does. There's a reason I follow him on Twitter. There's a reason that when I see it, I read it. I just think that the Salt Lake Tribune tends to be fanboy, and I think sometimes you wind up when you're I'm not going to say pandering, but when you're playing to a fan base and you're trying to I would guess empathize with fans. I think you're doing those fans a disservice, and you need to. That's why, previously when everyone was like, "Oh, this guy went after the Jazz," can you believe it? Well, it is a little shocking. The Salt Lake Tribune went after the Utah Jazz. Yes, it is. That's exactly right. But if Tony Jones had gone after the Utah Jazz, that's not shocking.
No,
I mean you have to keep it real. To be real, to be journalists, to be credible, you can't be a fanboy.
Why is it that whether it's the media or fans or whatever, why is it that we struggle to just say, hey, yeah, the Jazz roster fell short. They were not able to absorb injuries?
Because I think there is in a market like Salt Lake City, where the Jazz are the ticket in town in pro sports, I don't think there's any doubt this is a football town. But when the Utah Jazz are the professional team in town, I think there's a lot of people who worry about the objectivity and, oh man, if the Jazz are upset with me, I might not get my sit down, or I might not get instead of just doing the job and having a well-formed, well-thought-out, sourced opinion, you're trying to play to a team so that you can play to a fan base. And I think if you would just be a journalist, you'd be great. And that's why I say 9 days out of 10, Eric Walden's great. I choose to spend my money other places. And I think that when I need the best opinion on the Jazz, I go to Tony Jones.
Yeah.
With all due respect, I go to Spence Checketts. I think Spence Checketts, who is not a journalist, he is paid for his opinion. I think Spence Checketts does a good job on the Jazz. That's where I tend to spend my money. I think those are the informed, well taken opinions. And this is very similar in Phoenix. I think that we have a real shortfall of truly good opinion, objectivity on specifically the Arizona Cardinals. But I mean, I think when you look at all sports radio in Phoenix, I think, when how do I say this gently? With all due respect, when the journalists in Phoenix are paid by the team and the flagship, that's a problem. You're not going to get objectivity. You're not going to get real journalism. You're going to get what the team wants out there because the team is paying the insiders and the people who write about the team are paid by the team. That's a problem, right? Like if you look at the guys in Phoenix that, talk about the Suns, there's very little objectivity. There's very little journalism there. Very little.
Yeah.
And and I think a lot of it is because you have a transient fan base in Phoenix that I think has shown out and has absolutely stood up and been heard during this playoff run. I just think the media there is weak. And again, part of this is too, I grew up in Chicago in the heyday of Chicago media. And I grew up where there were true opinion-based columnists. When the newspaper business was the business. When you couldn't wait for the Chicago Sun-Times to come out the next morning or the Tribune to come out the next morning because Rick Tellender was going to have an opinion. Because the titans of sport were reading the paper. And I think that's where things changed. I think all of this paywall online stuff really hurts the ability of media outlets to pay guys who understand how to be journalists. Instead, it's a blogger who turned into a vlogger who, and all of a sudden they're the beat writer for the Salt Lake Tribune. And it's like, that's not going to work. And it's again why I have a lot of respect for The Athletic, why I give my money to The Athletic. I mean, I'll be honest with you and tell you I only pay The Athletic so I can read Tony Jones.
Yeah.
I don't ingest a lot of other content from The Athletic other than Tony Jones. And I think it is, and the thing here is that you get really good Utah BYU coverage.
Yes.
That just does not exist with the Utah Jazz. It doesn't. And I think that's why, and even like, I look at the KSLs of the world. I look at the Deseret News, like the outlets that cover the Jazz here in Salt Lake City, very much like the outlets that cover the Suns in Phoenix. There's just not a whole lot of want to be hard journalists, to be breaking stories, because when you break a story on the Utah Jazz, it pisses the Utah Jazz off. It's much better in this town if you are a journalist to be second on a story than to be first. And I think that's a big problem here. It's not a problem in Chicago, New York. It's not a problem in Los Angeles. I think they have great opinion makers and great journalists in Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. The New York Times, the LA Times. I mean, this is the benefit that the Jazz have for being the only dog in town. So it's just an interesting conversation. I miss the newspaper. I miss newsprint on my fingertips every morning. I
just miss accountability in sports, like in the media. Like I miss being able to have somebody say, hey, can you fix the camera there, bud?
Yes, sorry. I'm reading a Trevor Bauer update. My bad.
Oh, what's that say?
Just that now the entire domestic violence order is now public.
Oh man, dude.
Yeah, it's not going to be pretty for him.
Anyway, my last
apologies.
thought on this is just that I think that what you're talking about with the paper back in the day, whether it's that or just generally speaking, like the word accountability is the proper word here in many ways. So number one, like this morning talking about Walden's tweet, be accountable to what you were saying. If you're going to say something on Twitter and it's going to be a lone tweet on its own, be accountable for what you're saying. You're saying that the Suns wouldn't be here if everybody was healthy. Cool, man. And then if you're the Utah Jazz, be accountable for the situation that you're in. Like, part of me, and again, I'm not saying that it's wrong the way they handled it, but a small part of me is like, hey, why don't you just come out and say that you're moving on from Dennis Lindsey instead of doing this whole facade to be like, oh, well, he's resigning and moving into an advisory role.
Yeah.
And then next week he's going to take the Dallas job. So accountability in sports tends to kind of get lost in the muddy waters in certain markets. That's what I'll say.
Yeah. Anyway, I think the media. I think I miss truly good media coverage of things,
and that's why you looked forward to the guy writing the paper, right? Because you respected his opinion. He came with a clean cut, well thought out opinion.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I would agree with that. Let's see. Sleepy _ is tired. Chris Paul had to flop on the elbow. Otherwise, the refs don't call anything. Clippers gave extra body bumps and pushes after plays all series long. They did. And I think the Phoenix Suns started taking advantage of that.
Yeah.
But by the way, the whistle didn't blow very much at all.
No.
Last night.
Not until it kind of got over the top.
Yeah, I just think it is. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. Wow. Brandon Whiteside says tanking or being lousy eventually works. Suns will with a team full of lotto picks. Good for them. Why is that a bad thing that the Suns have lottery picks on their roster?
Yeah, why is that like a negative?
Brandon keeps going back to this, that the Suns, oh man, the only reason they're winning is they have lotto picks on their roster. So they drafted well. That's what you're saying, is they drafted well.
So you're saying the Warriors having lotto picks is a bad thing?
Yeah, like the Jazz not having lotto picks is a good thing? It's not. Nathan Johnson Vlog says, I know how to fix the Jazz. Feed Rudy Gobert heaps of trenbolone. Get him up to 275 pounds of lean, mean French man, and let's become the second coming of Shaq. Okay. Good luck with that. So you made Rudy a heavier guy that still can't shoot. Exactly right.
Yeah.
Shaq couldn't shoot either. I'm just saying bulk Rudy up to the point where he just bullies everybody.
Yeah, but what's the problem with that take? The problem is Rudy's a soft Euro player who doesn't want to be that kind of guy.
Shaq wanted to break you in half. I had the great fortune of covering Shaq in his prime with the Lakers. Shaq wanted to break you in half. He hated everybody on the other side of the court. I mean, he was a vicious, the most dominant player I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Shaq was unbelievable.
And I think most people agree with that. Like, single player, most dominant, for sure.
Yeah, I just think that, I think Rudy doesn't have that gene in his body. And I think that's going to make it very difficult for him to ever be a dominant player. I think that's just what it is. Brandon says Tony Jones is a New York Knicks fan, and the Jazz fans drool all over him. He's overrated. I don't care about bias, but Tony is not it.
Well, that's your opinion, bro. But
why does it matter that he's a Knicks fan?
Yeah, like
what does that got to do with anything? I mean, I think it makes him more of an empathetic figure because they're never going to win anything ever. Red Heart Norvis says, I know it was a joke to bulk Rudy to dominate, but I'm suggesting a legit improvement to Rudy's game. Well,
that's a different conversation.
Yeah, that's a different conversation. Yeah. If Rudy doesn't need a jump shot, he needs the ability to dribble a basketball and finish. That's what he needs. You need to be able to throw him the ball on the block with his back to the basket. And right now you can't do that. And it's cool that Rudy comes out in warmups and shoots threes, but I'm a huge believer in practicing shots you take in games, and Rudy doesn't do that apparently. So I'm hoping this offseason that I think every member of this Jazz team and front office organization should be on note. From the usher that's on the floor to Rudy Gobert in the paint. You got to step your game up and be better than you've ever been. And if that's not your mentality, I think you're going to struggle. I really do. Jeremy Bolton says, good for the Suns. Was hoping it would be the Jazz to be a great team and be fortunate at the same time with no major injuries to your main players. Yeah, well, unfortunately, Mike Conley's a guy that I point made.
Yeah, we've been down that road.
Hoping the Suns win it all. I think the Suns will win it all. I think they're the best team left in the playoffs. I think that, regardless of who they've played and who was injured, the Suns are in the NBA Finals, and they're largely healthy. Now, we asked the other night on Twitter during the game, where's Cam Payne? Well, it turns out he was hurt. He's a really important piece to their offense. I mean, by the way, he's rapidly improving defensively. He's long.
Yeah.
I think whether you play the Hawks or the Bucks, those two teams really enjoy shooting the three. And you're going to need length and aggressiveness at the three-point stripe, and Cam Payne's a big part of that. Because I don't think you can count on Jay Crowder to shoot that kind of percentage on a night-in, night-out basis.
No.
They needed it in a Game 6 in L.A., and he gave it to him. But I don't know that he can do that on a consistent basis. Gabe Ledley says, is there a nicer dude off the court, an absolute killer on it than Shaq? No, and that's one of the things that's so amazing about Shaquille O'Neal. And Kobe always struggled with this. Shaq was a guy who, as soon as the game was over and he put on his street clothes, he was the affable, joking Shaq that he is on inside the NBA. I always found him to be that way. But boy, as soon as he put on Laker shorts in a Laker jersey, look out, because he was coming for that ass, and he was not going to back down from anybody.
Yeah.
And I think Shaquille O'Neal, man, he's just the most dominant player I've ever seen. I mean,
he's an assassin.
Yeah, I mean, the guy really, wow. Was that a drop?
Dude,
was that a drop?
Some days.
You guys, holy cow. I think there was a drop played on the show.
You have to check it before you wreck it.
I can't just play drops whenever I want to, bro. There's gotta be context.
Are there rules?
I can't just play a random ass drop when we're sitting here talking about, some dumb take on Twitter.
Look, Skippy.
Yeah,
there are no rules on this show, Skippy. I shouldn't call you Skippy. Emmanuel Quaya says you guys are way better than ESPN. No,
thanks,
ESPN's amazing. James Knight says, I really hope the East win the finals so we don't have to hear you two guys drool over the Suns.
Oh, my God. I love you, James.
Hey, James,
where's
my 4X gold? But if I got to come to Melbourne to pick it up, I will.
That's out of the window.
I will. I absolutely will. Cody Strickland says, did anyone catch Rudy's comments in the last few post-game interviews about his offensive game, saying that he has some new moves coming soon?
Yeah, that's like Donald Trump saying he's going to roll out the healthcare plan. I'll believe it when I see it.
You know what it is? That's Donald Trump saying we're going to repeal and replace it on the same day.
Yeah, my ass.
That's Ben Simmons putting out Instagram videos of himself making corner threes like 30 in a row.
Yeah.
And then never attempting a three during the regular season.
My fucking head.
Like, what was that, 3 years ago?
Yeah, come on, dude.
Come on. Omar says, good morning, Monty and Skippy.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you. You just had to roll the Skippy out there. Now everyone's going to call me freaking
Skippy.
Exactly. Casey Finlinson wants to know if ESPN talks about Luka's mom. No, I don't think they do. I don't think they do. He says, I think not. All I have to say is, where in the hell is Grocock, Jeremy Bolton?
Yeah, seriously.
I don't know where he is.
Can James go find Grocock for us, please?
Yeah, James Knight, did Grocock get eaten? Whoa. Did Grocock get eaten by one of those huge carpenter spiders or whatever the hell those huge
things
I'm
good, dude.
In Australia? Australia, mate! He's probably putting some shrimp on the bobby. Okay,
What you want me to say to that?
Yeah, what's he supposed to say? James, I'm serious. I'll come to Melbourne and pick up that 12er of and I want a 12er now, not a 6er.
Yeah.
That 12er of 4X gold, I'll come to Melbourne and pick it up.
I want it.
I'm not going near Grocock, man. James Knight says. That's my guy. Red Heart Norvis, I know the Suns will go all the way, but I'll root for either East team just to make it interesting.
Man, dude.
Red Heart Norvis, why do you hate me? What have I ever done to you? Root for the Suns. Devin Booker's a sex machine. Okay, stop, because we got to talk about Trevor Bauer now.
Oh, God.
After you give us a thumbs up and you hit subscribe so that you can win this here Xbox Series X, which we'll give away. Same thing. 120 frame rate. Jesus. Cheese and rice, rather, I said. Just tag us on Instagram or Twitter. Like, who's the last guy? Jackson. Like our guy Jackson did. Appreciate you. Anyway, Trevor Bauer, the Los Angeles Dodgers. In all seriousness, this story is getting worse and worse and worse. Trevor Bauer's a stud. Arguably the best pitcher on their staff. He is a multimillionaire. He is young. He is healthy. He is beloved and hated. He is a professional baseball player. And he can have any woman in the world. So he chose to hook up with a woman who DM'd him on Instagram, who is from San Diego. They spoke. They agreed to meet. She drove up to his home in Pasadena, which means Trevor Bauer is giving women on Instagram his home address. She, in text messages, asked Trevor Bauer to slap and choke her and have rough sex with her. He did that on multiple occasions. And she claims now that he raped her. And yesterday, the awful details of this story came out. And if your stomach is a little queasy, I would suggest that you fast forward or...
Well, let's talk about it. I'm a good listener.
Because this is a rough story. The details are out on Trevor Bauer, and think about it in this framework. How has Major League Baseball and the LA Dodgers not sat Trevor Bauer down yet? He is scheduled to pitch Sunday, July 4th, for the LA Dodgers. Trevor Bauer, in this affidavit and complaint, is alleged to have used this woman's hair to choke her, he wrapped her hair around her neck, allegedly, and choked her. She is claiming that Trevor Bauer not only slapped her, but on one occasion punched her repeatedly into unconsciousness and then sexually assaulted her. And I'm just curious, man, why did you put yourself in this situation? A. B. He doesn't deny it. In the terms of, she asked me to slap and choke her. I have it in text message. I didn't do anything wrong. We had a consensual sexual relationship. They met twice at his home. She drove up both times. She did not run so there was a situation where she's alleging that Trevor Bauer punched her in the face multiple times, knocked her unconscious. She came to while he was sexually assaulting her, passed back out, woke back up face down on Trevor Bauer's bed. He said to her, "Are you okay?" She said, "Yeah." He went and took a shower. She stayed the night. The next morning, got out of bed. They hung out together for an hour, talked about what had happened, and she went home. This happened in April and May, by the way. It's now the 4th of July, essentially. She didn't instantly file a police report. She did not go to the cops. And they continued to text, and at one point, he offered to send her groceries and, "Hey, how are you doing? Are you okay? Can I send you some groceries?" Which she declined. And they had since stopped talking. And now you have another situation where you have a woman who is accusing a high-profile professional athlete of sexual assault. And she is doing so very publicly. And everybody loses. That's what this is.
Yeah.
Because if you believe this woman, she has been heinously abused by Trevor Bauer. If you believe Trevor Bauer, he'll never recover. He will lose millions of dollars over this. He will never recover. his reputation. So no matter which way this goes, no matter who's telling the truth, somebody's getting wrecked out of this. And I will put the blame for all of this squarely on Trevor Bauer. Because it is remarkable to me that Trevor Bauer not only hooked up with a chick in the DMs on Instagram, but by his own admission, agreed to slap and choke her into unconsciousness and have sex with her during the whole thing. Not once, but twice. And I'm wondering what you were thinking, Deshaun Watson, because it's almost the exact same thing in the way it came down. Now, in my opinion, if anything that was accused of Deshaun Watson, which, by the way, don't know where the cops are on this because he hasn't been charged yet.
Where are the cops? Where's the
Where's
lawyer?
the evidence?
Where's Deshaun Watson? Where are the Houston Texans? Where's the NFL?
But my point is, if you believe the women that are accusing Deshaun Watson, he is a serial sexual predator.
Yes.
Completely different than Trevor Bauer. But how did all this happen? You're a multimillionaire, you're an athlete, and you hooked up with chicks on DMs. You booked massages on DMs, and you flew them to Houston from Atlanta in one case. You had them in a hotel room, alone. You're not very bright. Like, this is really stupid. Yes. I am amazed by this.
Yes.
That these guys have put themselves into this position to lose it all. To lose it all. And you're not the first, and unbelievably, you won't be the last, because whether it's sex scandals like Harvey Weinstein, we're going to talk about Bill Cosby in a minute, like, you have all these guys that are millionaires and billionaires, and they can't help but sexually assault people when they could pretty much have any woman in the world.
That's what I really struggle with. Like, you're specifically with Bauer, like, you're one of the best pitchers in Major League Baseball, man. You've got everything. You're a Dodger now. Like, you're not playing for the Reds anymore. Like, you're in Los Angeles. You've got I'm sure, just a wonderful, like, house. Like, everything is, again, it hasn't been handed to you, but you've earned that. But you're there. You made it. And now you did this. You're
at the point where this woman, in an affidavit, and her lawyer, who, of course, is talking to the media, is talking about how she only went to the police because she wants Trevor Bauer to get the therapy he needs. Okay, now, not for nothing, you asked him to choke and slap you. I mean, you should probably worry about you.
Yeah.
And let Trevor Bauer worry about the police and the prosecutor.
I'm not really sure that you're in a position to be telling people what they need and what they don't need.
I am amazed that guys continue to put themselves in this situation. I don't even know. I don't even know how you do this, man.
I just think at a very base level, right? Like, whether you're, I don't even care if you're an athlete, a celebrity, a politician.
You or me, we're nobodies.
Like, anybody, you should never be in a position where somebody who has everything to gain is in a room alone with you and you're having sexual encounters. That should never happen.
And we have had this discussion, father and son discussion, about the fact that you can never put yourself in a situation where you have everything to lose and the other person has everything to gain.
Mm-hmm.
And now, and I don't know what the text messages say, but how, if you're a prosecutor, how do you just let this slide?
You can't.
I mean, I think you're almost in a situation where in this era of Me Too movement, whether he's guilty or not, I think you got to charge him. And I just don't know. I just don't know what Trevor Bauer was thinking here.
Well, and the other side of this, too, is, so the story goes, again, to point this out, and this is what, if I were Bauer, I'd be really concerned about, if he did indeed do all of this. That's the assumption here. The story and the allegations say that you punched her to the point where she was unconscious.
Repeatedly.
And the other side of this story is that she went to the hospital. There's been MRIs. There's been pictures of the abuse. And all I'm saying is science is never wrong.
But what do the pictures say?
That's my point.
The pictures say that she has swollen eye sockets. Like, the pictures essentially say that somebody beat the hell out of this woman.
Yeah.
And I don't know how text messages overcome those photos. And this is what I always say about going to court. If you're sitting in front of a jury, you're in trouble. Because it doesn't matter if you're guilty or innocent. If they see a guy being accused of like heinously abusing a woman, and then they put up big, huge posters. The only guy I know who's gotten out of that situation is O.J. Simpson. And that was not about Nicole. That was about society.
Yeah.
I look at Trevor Bauer, a white, affluent male who is a star athlete, who has a woman that's going to be portrayed as, innocent. And she thought she was going for a sexual encounter with a man that she cared about.
Mm-hmm.
And then you put these big blown up images of her face swollen and her eye sockets like puffy and
I guarantee you the MRI information will show that they will probably try to tell a story of how she was concussed and all of this horrible stuff. And I just think that I just think that I'm a big believer in life that we as people from a very young age have choices that we make, whether it's financially, from life, we all have choices that we make.
Yep.
And Trevor Bauer, that's a great point you made earlier. You're talking about Trevor Bauer starting this whole thing on Instagram DM. Like, what did you think was going to happen?
My question is, you're one of the best pitchers in baseball, and you currently play for the LA Dodgers.
You have everything.
There is a line out your front door, man, and you're telling me that you went to Instagram DM and then you agreed to slap and choke a complete stranger? God, you don't deserve the benefit.
And that's
of the
my other
doubt.
question too. That's a great point too. Like, how did he? The story is suggesting that they didn't really know each other, but I don't know. I just have a tough
Neither
time.
one of them deny that. They exchanged Instagram DMs briefly.
Yeah.
And it moved to text messages that were sexual in nature, where his attorney is saying that there are text messages talking about how she's begging him to choke her, and I want you to slap me. And she gets there to his house. They end up in his bed. And she even admits, hey, he slapped and choked me.
And then where's the line with that stuff, though? Because obviously punching you in the face wasn't part of the deal.
Here's the other part. The first time was supposedly so traumatic to this woman that they came up with a safe word, which apparently is something that when you're involved in this kind of violent sex, you agree to a safe word. And if she says Omaha, you stop. Okay, so we're going to have sex again, and the safe word is Padres. She's from San Diego. And I still think that plays a factor in this, but it is what it is. They have sex, and he apparently, according to the allegations this woman's making, beat her senseless to the point where she couldn't speak, so she couldn't say the safe word. That's how violent this supposedly was. And I just don't know what I say.
That was the first time.
No, that's the second time. The first time was so bad and so traumatic that they had to establish a safe word for the second time.
Which begs the question, was the first time really that bad?
Which begs the question of why were you back there for a second time, ma'am? What were you doing there a second time? He physically assaulted you and sexually assaulted you. And you went back for a second time? And then you admit that you were not scared of him? And so you stayed the night at his house after.
So then what are we talking about?
But that's my point.
What are we talking about?
Nobody wins here. Because what's going to happen if they don't charge him? What happens to this woman? Well, now she's a whore and she's
All these horrible things.
She's going to get buried on this. And even if he does get charged, She's going to get buried on this.
Yeah.
And if he goes to jail, she's going to get buried on this. Because I guarantee you there's a large sect of men in this country who will be like, oh, this isn't Bauer's fault. She asked for it. Well, I don't know anybody that asked to be repeatedly punched in the face if that's exactly what happened.
Outside of a UFC fighter.
And like during sex, a woman... I mean, hey, I'm not judging them for this whole slapping and choking thing.
Whatever floats your boat.
You choked her. You choked her unconscious, didn't you? Weren't you ever worried that you killed her? You choked her unconscious with her own hair, allegedly. Think about that. You're a pitcher for the LA Dodgers. Your deviance comes out to the point where you're willing to take a woman's hair, wrap it around her neck, and choke her with it. That's a problem, man. Like, yeah. Something is not right here.
Yeah, there's definitely missing pieces.
I think I can see it both ways. How do you not charge Trevor Bauer? How do you charge Trevor Bauer? She came back for a second interlude. Man, like, this is crazy.
I mean, that really hurts her stance. It does. As much as I hate to say this, it really does hurt her stance. That you said the first time was so horrible, but then but if it was so horrible, why did you feel comfortable enough to establish a word?
It was so horrible and so heinous and so awful, and you were traumatized. She claims the first time traumatized her. I better go back for a second time, but we're going to establish a safe word.
And then we're going to try and sue this guy.
And it does make her out to be a gold digger. It does make her out to be a money grabber, a bag chaser. It does. I mean, and I hate to say that, but it does.
Yeah, it's a bad look.
And then there's fucking Bill Cosby. This situation
Man, this show is real positive today.
It's not, actually. Thanks a lot, Eric Walden. This is the worst of the worst. And if you are not terrified by this Bill Cosby story, there's something wrong with you. Bill Cosby is accused. I think it's over 60 women. I was reading last night.
Mm-hmm.
Bill Cosby was accused by over 60 women of drugging them and then raping them. He was only charged one time in one single case by one single woman. In the trial, all of those other women testified against Bill Cosby. He was charged, he was found guilty, and he was sentenced to prison. Did you realize that he was sentenced to only 3 to 10 years? Like when Bill Cosby went to prison, I was like, fuck, he's never coming out.
Yeah.
3 to 10 years, of which he served 2.5. Did you realize he was only on one single count of drugging and raping one single woman? I did not. I thought he was charged with like tons of cases. No. And then you find out yesterday, just out of nowhere, that Bill Cosby walked out of jail and went back to his mansion, and he's eating pudding pops as we speak. He used to endorse pudding.
Yeah.
He's 15.
It's before my time.
Bill Cosby's chilling at the cut, man. And we find out that it's all about Donald Trump's impeachment lawyer acting inappropriately and handing the case to another lawyer who, unknown to him, was acting inappropriately. So all these women came forward. The prosecutor at the time, this Donald Trump lawyer, could not charge him with all of these crimes. So he cut a deal with Bill Cosby. And he said, okay, listen, if you sit for a deposition and you're truthful and you answer the questions, I will not charge you criminally. Well, Bill Cosby's like, hell yeah, let's do it. So Bill Cosby in the civil case, because this woman is suing Bill Cosby civilly, we won't charge you criminally if you go over into the civil case and you give a deposition. Bill Cosby sits down in the deposition and just lays it out. Well, then what do we know? All of a sudden, Bill Cosby gets charged criminally. Trial, conviction, see you later. Well, it turns out you can't do that. Well, how did this happen? Well, because the Trump lawyer left to go be a Trump lawyer, and a new prosecutor came in and was unaware of the agreement that was in place not to use the information in the deposition against Bill Cosby to prosecute him for drugging and raping this woman. So what did the prosecutor do? He took the information that Bill Cosby gave in the deposition and used it against him to send him to prison for drugging and raping this woman. Not only did they appeal that, they appealed the fact that all of these women testified against Bill Cosby, which was thrown out, and the judge says, well, it actually showed a pattern of behavior, so we're going to allow that. Yeah, but it turns out it's prosecutorial misconduct to have an agreement, which, by the way, was never in writing, to have an agreement with Bill Cosby that said you wouldn't prosecute him with the information that he gave in the deposition. You can't use it against him. So without the deposition, you have no evidence and you have no case. So the judge threw out the conviction and said you can never prosecute him for these crimes again.
It's over.
Bill Cosby will never be prosecuted for drugging and raping these women. None of them. And he is a free man. And it's because prosecutorial misconduct.
How does Donald Trump get involved in everything?
I have no idea. But the terrifying thing about this is you better get it in writing. If you do not see this, and this is the Bob Kraft case.
Yes.
Bob Kraft is not being prosecuted for these sex crimes in Florida, the rub and tug shop, because the cops didn't check a box on a search warrant application to use video.
Oh, shit. Damn, I am tripping.
That's why he's not being charged.
Mm-hmm.
So you see all these little issues like the Breonna Taylor murder. Cops didn't have the affidavits, the warrants, all that stuff falsified, not filled out right, all
None
that.
of the stuff you need,
Now you get to Bill Cosby, and what do you have? Well, yeah, Breonna Taylor, who they didn't prosecute anybody because she's poor, she's black, and they're going to let those cops off on that. They only got charged, the one guy got charged with shooting his gun into the not hitting anybody, but shooting the gun into an empty apartment. His bullet went into the apartment next door. Okay, well, what do you have with Bill Cosby? Well, it's a rich black dude. He's got a lawyer who knows how to lawyer, and he got him off. And what he got with Bob Kraft, a billionaire who's got a lawyer that he can afford, a top-end lawyer who knows how to read an affidavit and a search warrant application that said, hey, by the way, can't use any of that video evidence of my client getting a happy ending because you forgot to check this little box right here in the fine print. Now, if that's you or me, we're probably on the sex offender registry, which Bill Cosby's not, by the way.
Yeah.
It's amazing to me. And if that does not scare you, and if you are not terrified by that, I don't know what will scare or terrify you. Because this is terrifying.
The man's going to walk, not going to, he is going to walk free the rest of his life.
And you and me would not be walking free.
No.
And this is because of prosecutorial misconduct. And if bottom line is, don't DM chicks and then agree to choke them that you don't know. And don't be alone with masseuses in your hotel room. And, probably don't drug and sexually assault women. And you're probably not in this position.
Yeah.
And then there's Donald Trump.
Let's just keep the train rolling.
Who cheated on his taxes, apparently, because the Trump organization and its executives are all being hauled into court today and prosecuted with tax crimes.
You're so fucked.
And it really is because this Alan Weisselberg would not flip and go state's evidence against Donald Trump, even though many of his coworkers did that already. So they're going to prosecute Weisselberg for tax evasion. And they're hoping that by prosecuting him, that he turns state's evidence and essentially, how do I say this? It like rats out Donald Trump.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's an ugly situation, and I think it's one of these things where you're going to see that Donald Trump is going to be in a position where he is either going to be prosecuted or he is going to have to strike a deal.
Mm-hmm.
Now, will he ever do that? Because Donald Trump has always said that he will never strike a deal. I don't know if he will do that. But I think it's pretty remarkable that for the first time we are seeing the prosecution of people very near and very dear to Donald Trump. These are his best friends.
Yeah.
These are the people that he charges with running his business. But do you ever think that Donald Trump gets prosecuted here?
Yeah, because I think the at the end of the day, the paper trail eventually finds you. At the end of the day, you can't. I don't care who you are. At the end of the day, the IRS is always going to get that ass. And if you're going to evade taxes and you're going to do these things, it's just a matter of time. Whether that time is 10 years or 1 year or after he's passed away, I don't know. But what I'm telling you is that you don't do what he's done at his golf courses. You don't do what he's done with his foreign assets. You don't do what he's done in the States and think that you're going to get away with that. And eventually, that's coming for you.
Oh, God bless you, Larry Brown Sports and Lopes fan Gabe. So Larry Brown, who I actually worked with and know quite well, LarryBrownSports.com, has the text messages from Trevor Bauer.
Jesus. Here we go.
Wow.
He DM'd these two?
No, they're public knowledge. Larry Brown tweeted them.
Oh, boy.
And they talk about, it hits like that, huh? The pink socks stay on while cuddling. Yes, ma'am, whatever you want, but off when it's time to choke me out. Thanks, you're the best. I mean, she's asking him on text message.
You want to go out. He's questioning the fact that, wow, dude.
Trevor Bauer replies, you want to go out, huh?
Dude. And
she says C, S-I, as in Spanish, yes. That was a game changer. Tell me more, he says. Never been more turned on in my life. Give me all the pain. Rawr. R-A-W-R. Really? Trevor Bauer says when you were going out or when you woke up. She said going out. Now that I know what it feels like to wake up from it, good Lord, people,
this is over.
Stop tweeting at me. Now that I know what it feels like to wake up from it, though it'll probably feel just as good to wake up from that.
Yeah, this is over.
Trevor Bauer says, God, you just turned me on so much.
Yeah.
She says, mission accomplished then. Trevor Bauer says, now I just want my arm around your neck from behind.
Yeah, this is over.
She says, do it, harder. Blows him a kiss. Yes, ma'am, what else does Mamie like? Or what else does Mamie want? Get a couple of slaps in there and then another handprint on my ass. Then for Pappy to tell me what else he wants. Slaps in the face or question mark, he says. She says, yes, yes, and yes. Do you even know what pain is? He asks her. She says, try me.
Dude, this is over. I mean, he's not getting in trouble for this.
He says, well, you'd have to be here for me to do that. She says, I'll be in L.A. Tuesday and Wednesday. Ugh, I have plans already. FML, F my life. She says, no bueno. On a different day, or actually the same day, different time. Would tonight be no-go for you as well? Yeah, unfortunately, have someone in town. The next day, she tweets at him, good effing win. So she's well aware of who he is. He says, effing needed that one. She says, so happy for you. The next day, LOL, hey, thanks. She says, do it again tonight. I'll be at the game on Friday. He says, why? She says, my cousins who live in L.A. are going, and I said, fine, I'll go eat a GD Dodger dog. She's a baseball fan.
Yeah.
She lives in San Diego.
Yeah.
Well, I'm pitching Saturday, or I'd have you come over after. Like, He's
not getting in trouble for this.
This is not a joke.
It's over.
This is not a joke.
She asked him for this, and I just don't. So what stands out to me most about this is that she specifically is asking to be quote unquote put out. Like,
man.
You're not. What are you doing here? You have it. He's got it in text message. He didn't even solicit it. Like, she just said that to him. And now you're going to come back and try to sue him? Like, I really don't like being the guy that says, hey, she's out for the bag, but that's what this looks like. I mean, honestly, like that's what those text messages portray.
Those text messages are really, really bad. On Larry Brown Sports, LarryBrownSports.com, Trevor Bauer's representative sent Larry Brown Sports what they say are text messages between Bauer and the woman who has accused him of assault. The messages allegedly came between the first and second encounter. Oh, my God. Police in Pasadena are investigating.
They clearly did. Because she said in the text messages, like what you were reading, it clearly makes it seem like, hey, I didn't, like, she said something to the effect of, I didn't know what it felt like to wake up from it. And I really like that. Do it again.
Yes.
He's not getting in trouble for this. I mean, it is a scandal. It is a big deal, but I don't think he's getting in trouble for this.
In the days following their second and final encounter, the woman shared photos of herself and indicated that she sought medical care for a concussion. Mr. Bauer responded with concern and confusion, and the woman was neither angry nor accusatory. Mr. Bauer and the woman have not corresponded in over a month and have not seen each other in over 6 weeks. Her basis for filing a protection order is non-existent, fraudulent, deliberately omits key facts, information, and her own relevant communications. Any allegations that the pair's encounter were not 100% consensual are baseless, defamatory, and will be refuted to the fullest extent of the law.
Yeah.
That is from Trevor Bauer's attorney.
I'm just telling you. I mean, you're not getting away from this if you're the woman. I mean, you're not.
Dude, I just, again, will say, I don't know how on earth you put yourself in this position.
Both ways, both sides.
My God.
If you're Trevor Bauer, you got to be better than this, though. You got to see that this is asking for trouble.
By the way, who does this? Maybe I am just, like, not very good at sex. That sure could be the case.
Hey, man. People are, yeah. I don't know.
Good luck. All right.
Anyway.
What were we talking about?
Cosby walking.
Yeah,
that's it. That's it, dude.
By the way, should Joe Biden be in Florida at this condo tower collapse?
Yes.
You think he should be?
Yes, absolutely, without a doubt. Yeah. He's the president of the United States, and a building fell down because a building fell down. I think it's 16 or 18 people are officially dead. You've got another 145 that are in the what's being called 1,400 tons of concrete, and you shouldn't go down. Like, I just think that it's absolutely necessary.
He's taken a lot of heat for not being there already.
Yeah.
What is Joe Biden going to do for that building collapse? Like,
it's not that he's going to go and do something. I just think that he's the president of the United States. We've never really seen something like this before, where a building just
not in this country.
And now with what we know, I'm not going to use the word randomly, but at the time it was like, building in Miami just randomly fell down. Like, what the hell? Now we know obviously everything. So I just think that Biden, being the president of the United States, this is what you do when things happen. You need to go down there and make an appearance.
Yeah, well, I think if he goes down there without FEMA and without dollars and without the ability to make a measurable impact on that scene, I think it's a mistake. He is meeting with the families, obviously. I think you need to bring to bear the full weight of the government. And if you can help move concrete, if you can put dollars, whether it's bring donuts or bring bulldozers, do whatever you can do.
Yeah.
Because there are 145 families now still waiting to find out what happened to their loved ones. And unfortunately, I think we all know what happened.
Yeah.
But that's not a great situation. I just don't think if you're President Biden that you can win either way. I really don't. I just think no matter what Joe Biden does. Yeah, no, you can't. I think no matter what. Were you trying?
That
to
was
play
an accident. Yeah.
No.
That was an accident.
I don't think Joe Biden can ever get the benefit of the doubt. I really don't. Anyway, all right. That's it, shows. Boy, this show is heavy.
Yeah.
This was not like good old jolly Roger Monty on the show and stuff. This feels like a heavy show. By the way, I still maintain. Why is Trevor Bauer still on the schedule to pitch Sunday?
Because he's not going to get in trouble for this?
Yeah, we'll see. All right, make sure you follow us on Instagram and Twitter, The Monty Show, MONTY, The Monty Show. If If you're here right now, please give us a thumbs up. Hit subscribe. When we get to 1,500 subscribers, we will be giving away this Xbox Series S. Until tomorrow. Say goodbye, Jake. No, I'm not doing it. Say goodbye.
Stay out the DMs, Jake.